Hey guys, this is Kerry, and in this video we're going to be wrapping up the riddle quiz, or well, your quiz project might be different than riddles. We're going to have the score appear at the top, and we're going to make it so that we get nice feedback when we type in our answers here and then press the check button. Let's start off by putting the score at the top, and there's a couple of new things I wanted to show you with this. So, in order to put the score at the top, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to put an H3 inside of it, an H3 inside of it, that says score, and we'll just start off with 0 points. All right, let's see how that looks in the full screen version. So there's a lot that I like about this. I've got the score div at the top, and I've got a score of 0. And yeah, there's also some things I don't like about it, which is that all of the styles from this div are actually the same as the other divs on the page. So what we need to do is we need to fix that. So these divs are styled one way, and then this div up at the top is styled a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a class on these divs, a special identifier that says these divs are styled differently than the normal div. And then I'm going to give this one a different class. Let me show you the details. So down here in the riddle 1, which is my first question box, inside of the opening tag for the div, I'm going to press class equals, and I'm going to call this question div. And I'm going to designate that all of the divs down here that correspond to questions are part of this special group or this class of objects. So I'm going to give class, I'm just copying and pasting that in. This one, question div, this one, question div, this one, question div, and then my fifth one, my last one, question div. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into the styles. And when I previously designed all these styles to the div, I was just styling all of the ones that are question divs. So what I'm going to say here is instead of styling all the divs like this, apply these styles to only the ones that have a dot or class of question div. So what I got now when I refresh my page in full screen is I've got this div at the top that's getting no styles, and then all the question divs get that group of styles that I had before. Next up, I'm going to go into the index.html, and I'd like to style this div specially. So I'm going to give this div a different class. I'm going to call this the score div, because what it does is it stores the score. And then in my styles, I'm going to add a couple of features to my score div. So I'll say, take the thing with a class or dot score div, and apply these styles to it. First off, I want the background to be purple. That way I can see it. And I'm going to change the text color to white. And you can see that mine is still displaying as gray because it hasn't had a chance to load yet. Now that it saves, you can see that these styles are only being applied to the score div up here, not the other divs. I'm going to add a little bit of padding onto this. So I'll do padding 3 pixels. And I'm also going to add some extra padding. And so what padding is it's the space around the words. I'm going to add some special padding on the left to make it so it's not right up against the edge. I'm going to put padding left 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Sweet. I'm feeling pretty good about the styles here. There's a couple things I want to fix though. I notice it's not right up against the edge. And the reason why it's not right up against the edge doesn't actually come from the styles on this box. It actually comes from the styles on the body. So a lot of the elements in HTML have margin, space in between the elements, like this gap right here, or padding, space within these elements, like here, between the edges and the words inside. The body comes with padding, and I don't want to have these gaps, this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the margin on the body by making it 0, and I'm going to get rid of the padding on the body that automatically comes with it by making it 0 as well. Now, when I refresh, this should get rid of the gap here. Sweet. Love it. All right, so now as I scroll, I notice that the score does not stay stuck to the top of my screen. I'd like to be able to be answering like question 3 and still see my score. So I want to teach you a new style. In this style, what we're going to do is we're going to go down into the score div, and we're going to use a new property. We're going to say position. And because we want it to be stuck to the top of the screen, we're going to designate the position. And this is a computer science word, position sticky. So it's going to be stuck to the top of the screen. Let me refresh it. All right, so now as I scroll down, it's not stuck to the top of the screen. So what I think I need to do is I think I need to specify the position that I would like to stick it to. I want to stick it so that the top is at 0 pixels, that top 0 pixels, like no gap there, and the left is also at 0 pixels, no gap there. Let's see if I got it this time. So these are both 0 pixels. We refresh it, and we scroll, and look at that. The div at the top is stuck to 0, 0, and it doesn't move as we scroll. That's pretty cool. All right, so now that we're done with everything stylistically, it's time to do some stuff with the answers. So when I think about the answers and things like that, I'm going to need to get a couple of things for my JavaScript code to interact with. So let me start to outline my thoughts here. Get the things I will be interacting with. And then I'm going to say, when I click the button, check if I'm right, give feedback accordingly, and update the score. All right, so that's a lot, actually. Let's see if we can start with getting the things we're going to be interacting with. So if I'm going to be getting this stuff, I usually use document.getElementById. So I'd like these things to have IDs that I'm going to be interacting with here. So I'm going to be interacting with this, right, the input area. When I click the button, I need to interact with that. I want the answer or feedback to appear down here. And then lastly, I'd also, there's actually two. I also would like it to have it so that it changes the background color of the entire box to red or green. So that's 4 things four things I'm going to be interacting with. And then the last one will be the score up here. So let's get started. We've got our work cut out for us. If I'm going to be interacting with those things, I need to give each of them an ID. I'm going to give this div an ID because I'd like to be able to change the color of it depending if it's correct or incorrect. So I'm going to call this ID div1 because it's the first of my divs. I'm going to give this input an ID of input1 because it's my first input and I'd like to be able to interact with it. I'm going to give this button an ID of check1 because it's the first check your answer button. And I'm going to give this paragraph down here an ID of feedback1 because it's the first place that I'll be giving feedback to the user. So I've got the input, the button, the feedback, the entire thing to change the color of it. I also need to do the score. So I'm going to give this one an ID of score, score h3. And the reason why I'm giving that the name score h3 instead of score is I'm planning to use the variable score not to represent the area where I'm showing the score, but the actual value of the score, which will start as 0. So I think intentionally, let's put score h3 there. I'm going to get these things using their IDs. So I'm going to say let score h3 equal, go to the document and get the element with the ID of score h3. I'm also going to have a bunch of question 1 specific things. So this score is going to be useful for all of my questions. So I'll just put a question 1 marker here, and I'm going to get the input area, the button, and the feedback area, as well as the entire div, right? So I need 4 things. So the first thing is the entire div, because I'm going to be changing the color of it. So I'll change both of these spots here to div1. The next one is going to be the input area, so I'll change both of these spots to input1. The next one of these, and you might have to do this one at a time here, but I can do it twice. So then I also want to get check1, and then the feedback area down here. So I'll change both of these to feedback1. So now I've got the 4 things that I'm interacting with for question 1. So the last part is to program the functionality of the button. I don't know why it's underlining these in red. I'm going to ignore it for now and see if that fixes. So here we go. In riddle 1, I want to say, take check1. and add an event listener to it so that when I click on check one, it runs a function. I'd like to make sure that my code is just working, period here, so I'm going to type alert hi. So now when I click on it, it should just say hi. Let's see if that works. Okay, mine is working, my button. If yours is not working, one of the things that I didn't show you in this video that I did before the video that you might not have remembered to do is when we make the script file, we have to link it into the page. So I added this line of code here before we recorded the video, which was script source equals script.js. And this should be at the very bottom of your HTML after all of the question div stuff is created. All right, so I'm going to go into my script.js, and now I'm going to make the code a little more complicated. When I click on check one, I want to get their answer. So I'm going to say let answer one equal, go to the input one area, and get the value that they typed in there. Then I'm going to alert out whatever answer one is, just to make sure that everything is working. So I'm going to refresh here. I'm going to type in an answer, check answer, and now I get whatever they typed in being popped up to me. Feeling good about it so far. I'm going to get rid of that alert. And this is like a necessary process for me, is to keep adding in these alerts because it's very hard to program without making errors. And if I check it all the time, I'm less prone to have a lot of errors. So now what I want to say here is I want to say two different things. I want to say if their answer is correct, do one thing, and if their answer is incorrect, do something else. So I'm going to say if answer one is equal to, the actual answer for this riddle is the word egg, then I'd like to alert out correct. If their answer is anything else, and I put curly parentheses there, let me zoom in a little bit because I know that can be hard to see. If their answer is anything else to the riddle, I'd like to alert out incorrect. So you can see kind of how I just check it each time by using alerts. All right, let's see if this works. So I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to type egg in here, check answer. It says correct. I'm going to get the answer wrong right now. I'll press check answer. It says incorrect. So my if and else are working really well. There's one detail here that I think is important. If I type in egg with a capital E, I feel like I should also check this as a correct answer. So let me press check answer. It marks me incorrect. So what we can do is we can say, before we check to see if the answer is correct, make answer one equal to the old value of answer one, and then from our string problems, we can use the to lowercase function. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the old value of answer one, and it's going to make it lowercase, and then it's going to save that over the original value of answer one in that variable spot. So let me see if this works right now. I'm going to take egg lowercase. That works. Refresh it. Egg uppercase. That's also being marked correct now because it's making it lowercase before comparing it to the egg. All right, next up, I don't want to just show these things here. What I really want to do is I want to do feedback1.inner.html, that spot on the page, that invisible paragraph down here. I'd like to make that say, you are correct. And then down here, if I get it wrong, I'd like it to say, in the inner HTML here, you are incorrect. The answer was egg. All right, let's test it again. I know this is annoying to keep testing, but it's one of the things, and I'm just going to test it with weird capitalization like that because that should still be correct. I'm correct. And now if I try out a different answer, you're incorrect. The answer was egg. Sweet. All right. Next up, I'd like to change the background colors of the page. So what I'm going to do is not the page, of the div. So I'm going to say that when I get it correct, take div1, and then go into the styles of div1 and make the background equal to green. And if I'm not correct, I want to take div1 and make the style go into the background style, just like in CSS. I'm changing the styles, in particular the background style, to make it red. Let's see if this works. So if it's egg, Now it's green, sweet. If it's anything else, now it's red, and the answer was egg. Awesome. Next up, we're going to do the score. So because the score is going to be starting at 0 and changing over the course of the problems, I do want to make it so that I have a variable to keep track of the score. So down here, I'm going to say, or up here, I'm going to say, let score equal just the number 0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when they click on this, if they got it correct, then the score number should be equal to whatever the score was before. And then this one was worth 100 points. So I'm going to say plus 100. And if they get it wrong, I'm going to say that their score should be equal to whatever the score is minus 100, because they lose 100 points for getting it wrong. Let me refresh it. Egg. My score didn't change. And the reason why my score didn't change is even though it's updating the number score, I don't tell it to display the new score at all. So to display the new score, I'm going to say take score h3 and make the inner HTML of that equal to the word score space or colon space plus whatever the actual score number is. And I guess I want to do this if they get it correct, but I also want to do it if they get it incorrect. So I'll put it in both branches of the if-else. So I'm going to update the score to the new number, and then I'm going to say go to that h3 element on the page and make the text inside of that score colon score. Let's see if this works. So egg, now I've got 100 points. And I can keep pressing it because I keep checking it and I keep getting 100 points for eggs. And this is the last thing that I'm going to be doing is I need to disable them taking multiple tries at the same question. So in order to disable it, after they do both of these things, I want to say regardless of what branch you went down, whether it was correct or incorrect, I don't want you to be able to guess again. So I'm going to say input1 dot disabled is equal to true. And check1 dot disabled is equal to true. And I think this works if my memory serves me correctly. I might have to look this one up. So now I'm going to guess egg. I'm going to press check answer. Sweet. And what I can see here is it's actually disabled those buttons and that input area. So now I can't change my answer. And I can't push the button again. None of that works. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good about my question 1. And I actually think this is a pretty good template for what we need to do for the other ones. One thing I'd like to highlight is these score features right here. We don't want to reset the score to 0 after each question. So we're not going to duplicate this line of code. And we only need to get the score h3 once. For the next question, though, we will have to add IDs to the question 2 things, get those things with their IDs, and then add this new functionality to those elements. So hopefully you can figure out what you need to do in order to get the remaining questions working and have a working quiz app. Best of luck, guys. Bye.